The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is David Spark. I am the host and producer of the CISO Security Vendor Relationship podcast and the entire series. And I have an awesome webinar set up for you guys, and I really appreciate you coming. And you can see a few of us are on video. Some of us are not in places where we can put the video on, but their opinions are just as important. So I'm going to introduce all four of you. Just each one of you, just pipe up so everyone knows your voice and can recognize your voice as we go into the conversation. I have Tyson Martin, who is the CISO of Orvis. Tyson, say a quick hello.
Hello, everybody. How are you today?
And also Philip Calazan, who's the co-founder and CEO of Verkada. Philip.
Hey, everyone. Good to meet you.
Philip is not on video. And also Rick McElroy, who's a security strategist with Carbon Black.
Morning, everybody. How you doing?
And Rick is wearing a baseball cap. He has showered today. He is confirmed with me, just hasn't brushed his hair. And lastly, Alex Wood, the CISO of Pulte Financial Services, not on video, but we can hear his voice. Alex?
Hey, David, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we have two CISOs. We have two security vendors, and we are going to have a discussion about the environment between buyers and sellers of security products. I first, though, want to specifically call out and thank both Carbon Black and Verkada for sponsoring this webinar, and actually been sponsoring a lot of the series as well. So thank you very much. And let me just say that the goal of this webinar is to learn more about the needs of security buyers and sellers and how they want to work towards a happier and more successful relationships, and also build better security for all of us. So give us your questions. Please throw them out at any time during this event, and we will get to as many of them as we can possibly answer. But you should also note that I also accept content and tips and suggestions for the whole series, for the articles, the videos, the podcast. So anything that doesn't make it, it becomes fodder for everything else. So we got a whole mess of topics set up for you. And let's go to the very, very first question that we have. And that is, what is so darn difficult about selling security products? I will begin with you, Alex Wood, or buying and selling security products. So you come from the buying of security products side. What is so tough about it?
Sure. So from my perspective, there's a couple things that it really makes it more difficult for me. One, there are so many products out there. Security is a super hot topic, and lots of companies jumping into the security space. So in many of the different areas for products, you have 5, 10, 20, 50 vendors, and being able to figure out which one of those are worthwhile versus which ones aren't is always tough for us. On that same kind of note, it's not always easy to review the products themselves, say within your environment, how it's going to work for you. Sometimes that's a pretty difficult process, getting a proof of concept or a proof of value set up. And then some of those products, you may be looking for one particular feature and they provide that, but also 7 others. And those 7 others, may be ones you already have, maybe not. And so the market isn't exactly uniform. So it's hard to get a vendor.
There's a lot of bleed.
There's a lot of bleed. I think that's a good term for it.
So Tyson, what would you add to that in terms of the difficulty of buying security products?
I think we could have a staff of several people that would just be proof of concept people if we were going to proof of concept everything. Which I've been in many organizations, and I don't think there's been one that has had that capacity, right? And I think Alex's point about how difficult it is to proof of concept, right? So I think the concentration of your ability to take care of what you say you address, how well you do it, is difficult to gauge. And then getting it stood up, I think getting a security product stood up needs to be made simpler. So it can be proof of concept, and you can see the value and see how it applies to you, right? How it applies to me or how it applies to Alex. Organizations might not be that different, but they're different enough where the solution might not fit me. So.
All right, so we got it from the purchasing side. I want to move over to Rick. Rick, tell me, What do you hearing this, and I'm sure none of this is really new to you, but it's more that you are a victim of this in a sense that you are in a crowded marketplace. What do you find is the toughest part about selling security products?
I think our whole team would say the noise, right? So some of that is necessary noise, right? Actually what's happening to address threats. And then a lot of it is just noise amongst competitors. Everybody's kind of doing everything now. So look, you go to RSA and Black Hat and it's a little annoying, right? You have every vendor that kind of says we solve all the problems, and that's not true. And then I think what do we see out there? So the capability of teams to test some of these solutions, to the earlier point, doesn't exist. And so they rely on third parties that may or may not be very accurate in their assessment of the tools. So yeah, it's a difficult problem.
Is it, and Philip, what would you add to that, in terms of your trying to sell security products? Is there, I'm sure none of this is new, but, and also you come in a different angle, because you guys also sell a physical security product as well, that bleeds into digital for that matter. What's your challenge?
My challenge is interesting. It's kind of a little different than what we've been said so far, but our challenge is that when we sell a physical security product, there's different contingencies involved in the organization that's buying us, and the requirements that different people in the organizations have for our products are very different, right? So on the one hand, we've got people that are in loss prevention, that are very focused on the physical nature of security. They're talking megapixels, they're talking camera placement, and they're not always aligned with the IT side. And I think our challenge is that we're trying to deliver a physical security product that also satisfies the highest standards of cybersecurity, and that's really the challenge that we have to navigate.
Yeah, and I know that the physical market is bizarrely, it sells very differently than the digital market. I want to go around the horn and get quick answers from all four of you, because I think that the market has changed pretty drastically. So just look at where you guys were 5 years ago. I'm assuming all you were in security about 5 years ago. Just pick what has been the biggest change in the InfoSec marketplace. I will begin with you, Alex. What do you think the biggest change has been?
I would say the biggest one from my perspective is volume. And I mentioned that in my initial piece, because it used to be you could find a couple products that were in an area. Now it's just amazing how many different products are in a particular vertical. Okay.
And let me bounce over to you, Rick. What do you think the biggest change over the past 5 years has been?
Yeah, innovation. Defenders have better tools. It's just now a matter of actually being able to test and implement them.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. So is that we are having a high level of innovation?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it definitely adds to the noise in the market. But if you take the endpoint as an example, there are so many better choices than antivirus out there, right? So I think defenders are getting better weapons. It's just actually being able to get through proof of concept to make sure they're actually solving the challenges and implement them.
And Philip, what do you think the biggest change has been?
I think the biggest change in our industry has been the increase in focus on privacy and how information is actually handled in video. 5 years ago, I think people were putting cameras everywhere and not really thinking about the consequences of how the data is captured, stored, and moved around. Today, there's a lot of conversations happening about exactly about who and when and why is accessing that video and what purpose they're using it for.
And then I'll end with you, Tyson. What do you think the biggest change has been?
I just think the attention on the market and on the challenges have grown. So there's more money, and there's everything that all the other panelists have said has been adjusted accordingly, right? There's more opportunities to sell. There's more opportunities to solve problems. But yeah, I think it's the money and the focus.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next topic. How and when do you trust a security vendor? Now, I gotta assume, and I'll quickly ask both of our buyers here, both Tyson and Alex, I have to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that trusting your security vendor is a core part of the decision-making process to actually purchase from a security vendor. Can I assume that's true? Yes?
Yeah, that's
Most
correct.
definitely.
Okay, all right. So with the assumption that that is true, I want to talk about the variables that you use to determine trust from a security vendor, because I wrote about this and this caused a flurry of discussion of where trust comes from, where it's broken. So I'm going to be very open-ended, and I'll start with you, Tyson. How does that trust form, and does it form from that very initial meeting?
Yeah, I mean, trust is not. I mean, some people build up trust, I guess, quicker than others, but for me, it's not instantaneous. No, I need to know that the solution is technologically sound and makes sense in the approach. I need to test it and improve it, and then I need to ensure that it's sustainable, and that it's going to grow. Right. So if I bought, Rick mentioned an endpoint protection product, right? If an endpoint protection product did the same thing as it did in 1999 today, probably wouldn't still have trust in it, right? It needs to evolve with me and with the risks. And then another thing that helps me to build trust is, talking with others that have already solved the problem with the tool and seeing how it's fitting for them, right? And I likewise do the same thing. If I find something, I become almost evangelical about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I can connect quickly with another CISO. And be able to say, hey, you've talked about these challenges, try this, check this out, right? So trust is, and then as people give back to this community, right, like with this relationship series, right? So people that advertise to me get it, right? And they're early adopters to that, and they're supporting something. And if they can help the community locally that I'm in, and then nationally and internationally, that says a lot from a trust perspective as well.
That's a very good point. Let me bounce over to you, Philip. What have you learned about getting trust from the buyers, and where has been your greatest sort of moment of gaining trust?
I think with us, the challenge that we have is we're taking almost a new architectural approach to solving the problem that we're solving. And for us, the buyers that have helped us build trust, both with them directly, but also broader with the industry, were the ones who really took a deep dive with our technology. And what we found was, exposing the buyers to even some of our engineering team and doing a deep dive on exactly how we set up things, some of the architectural decisions we've made, kind of the details of how we've set up encryption on every level. That's what helped us convince those early customers to really buy into our approach and into our architecture. And from there, what we find, which goes back to Tyson's point, is the community is small, the word spreads, right? So once you have a couple of big name accounts who trust your solution, that word spreads, right? And we can use them as references, and the broader set of customers follows.
Well, let me touch on that references line, because getting a reference in the security space is not the easiest thing. How do you sort of dance around it? Because how important, CISOs talking to other CISOs, do the references have to be private, or can you ever make them public?
It depends on the customer. Some people are, some are obviously okay with us, making a public statement about, particular company using our solution, and we've got, a couple of big name accounts. While others are private, and we're happy to make those private connections. And what we find is staying close to our customers is the most important, thing. We try to really think of ourselves as a true partner to our customers. We do a lot of custom work for some of our customers, and in return, they're willing to to help spread the word about our approach being a sound one, and taking calls like that.
Rick, let me go to you about talking about staying close to the customers. One of the things I have heard in the past is the importance of, if a customer is quiet, that doesn't mean they're a happy customer. How do you, keep tabs on them without being annoying, and sort of embolden and strengthen that relationship so trust is even deep, and even after they purchased your product?
Yeah, I mean, specific to our organization, we have what's called a customer success team. And so they have customer success managers that are associated that reach out on a regular basis. And then I would tell you, I spent a lot of time on the road along with a lot of our other execs, making sure that we have those proactive meetings to make sure that our roadmaps are actually going to meet their needs in 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months, and that we kind of tease those out before they become real issues. So yeah, any tickets that are escalated are closely monitored and managed, and I think building the trust is a little easier than maintaining that over 5, 7, 10 years, right? I think that's one of the challenges on our side, right? Is maintaining that trust and delivery and execution over the period of time. Yeah.
I mean, and this is just a generic problem in sales. I mean, do you feel that the need to maintain the trust is a combination of two things? One is your competition trying to still get in, and two, there's this sense of, well, we've got that customer, we need to bring in new customers, so we sort of lower our sort of management of this and raise our management on the other side with the potential new customers. What do you think the reason is for why it's so tough with the existing?
I think it's a little bit of both, and another thing that makes it tough is 18 months for a CISO, right? I mean, that's sort of the life cycle right now. So what we experience is, and I've had this conversation. Hey, we bought a Lamborghini, we don't know how to drive it, right? And so a new team comes in and then rips and replaces technology for something that they know. Whether or not that's a better solution, I don't know, but that's a challenge as well. As like when CISOs are kind of getting left out to hang and getting fired all the time, you don't really get a chance to strategically move initiatives, right? So I think on the business side, we need leaders that are sticky and stay a little longer. That's going to help. And
then, I'm sorry, Tyson, I didn't ask you this question, did I yet? Regarding when you form trust?
You didn't ask Alex. I did respond already.
Alex, so let me ask you. So how do you form your trust?
Yeah, so I think there's actually sort of two parts for me. One is trusting the company or the vendor, and then also trusting the product. I think that those are slightly different pieces. I'm not going to be able to fully test out a product before I get it in my environment. No matter how much we try, it's not going to be production until we buy it and put it in use. So it's going to take me longer to actually trust the product. Now, to the example previously, talking about an endpoint solution, if I brought it in, tested a bunch of products, decided which one seemed like it was going to be working the best, once I have it in and use it for a while, and it really does what I expect it to do, and I can count on it to provide the protection or detection or whichever that I need, then I can start trusting that product. In terms of the company itself, I think that it really takes work by those companies. And Rick was mentioning it, getting out and having executives talking to the folks at the buyer. I'm always happy when people come and visit us so that I can hear about the roadmaps, hear about what they're doing. And then the responsiveness and follow through on items that we talk about. The last thing that I need to do is to be hounding my vendors to get something done. So, if I ask for something or, if I need something, then I really expect them to take that on, be responsive, follow through, get things done so that I don't have to be the one that's playing, project manager or whatever to get answers back from them.
That's a good point. All right, I want to move on to our next topic because we touched upon this already about the whole concept of a vendor becoming a partner. So let me ask, when does a vendor become a partner? And I really want to start with the buyers here, how they feel about it, because, I hear this all the time. Vendors say that they want to be their partners, that we want to be a true partner. But one CISO I spoke to mentioned that among 100 vendors, only really 6 or 8 of them they really rely on as partners. Now, it's possible that there are some transactional products for which you really just don't need them as a partner, but there is definitely, I think, a real discrepancy between what is being said by the vendors and which vendor CISOs view as partners. So let me begin with you, Tyson. When do you see a vendor as partner? And I got to assume there are times where you just don't need them as a partner.
Yeah, I I do think there are point solutions where it's good to have you know, have a friendly relationship with them and be able to provide the feedback and see it grow. Like Alex said, responding to, hey, here's a sticky point or here's some friction. So my business has been around since 1856, right? What I foresee is when I start a relationship with a vendor, if it's going to become a partnership, I'm making a much longer term decision, right, Rick? I think you'd like to have a relationship with somebody that you can say your business has been around a long time, right? You'd like to have somebody that's been with you for 20 years someday, right? 30 years, 40 years, that kind of thing. I kind of jotted down like there are partners that I have that I feel like if I lost them, it would be more critical than losing some of my most trusted employees, right?
Oh, really? So that's quite a big statement.
Yeah, and because I mean, I think as organizations grow more and more, you're going to do more with your partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your tools are going to be if they're evolving, like I mentioned, and they're simple to set up, they're simple to tweak, if we across the industry, we're doing more and more with vendors, and it fills gaps in something it doesn't make sense for every organization to be the Fort Knox of protecting data and ensuring availability and integrity, right? So yeah, I think they become a partner when they get to that status. So it's like, what would take 2 or 3 people, because the tool is effective. Instead, you don't have to have those 2 or 3 people. Not that people are not important, right? It's just what we're protecting, right, is very, very precious, right? More and more stuff is going digital. That whole term of digital transformation, and more, businesses are expecting innovation.
So let me also ask you, Alex, before we go over to asking both Philip and Rick, when does a vendor become a partner? What is the sort of turning point for you?
Yeah, so I think you don't always have, in my opinion, the option to make a vendor a partner because of the services or the products that they might provide to you. So if they're not providing something that is super key to your organization, or maybe a point product or something like that, it just doesn't make sense to have them as a partner because it's not key to your business. Yeah, you might need what they provide, but it's not the center of your program or something like that. Now, it's much more likely for me that a vendor is going to become a partner when they are part of the key security controls that I have. So if a SIEM provider that is in the center of my security operations work, I'm going to want them to be a partner because that is a key security control that we have, and we need to make sure that we have good security monitoring, security operations. Now that said, I think to become a partner, it goes partially back to that trust piece, right? The more trust that you can build in that vendor, the more likely it is that you will bring them on as a true partner. Also, depending on the product, either building the product into a more of a platform that you can use as a centerpiece like that, or having the product be open, whether it's through APIs or something else, so that it integrates well with your other products, I think are also key. And more products are going that way, but if you have something that is its own ecosystem and doesn't play with others, it really makes it hard to make that a true cornerstone of your program and have a partnership with that vendor.
Rick, you heard what both Tyson and Alex said. When your product is key to their program, and your product does kind of fall under that category for many companies, I am going to assume you agree with that, but is there more to the story than that? And how do you get to that point, or is it just really building trust over time before partnership can really come on in?
Yeah, so if you're a new brand or a newer brand, I guess I'll say it that way, you have a big uphill battle, right? Which is to win the trust initially, and then keep it over time. So in regards to the partnership question, I think on the vendor side, it has to be a true partnership. Like the customer has to feel like we're in the foxhole with them when they escalate issues. To someone's earlier point, we get that it's a security program, we understand that there's a sense of urgency and sometimes a sense of emergency with that. And if we're not responsive, right, when they escalate an issue, if we don't show up and try to help them, or build the right things technologically, right, that are going to enable their teams, then no, you can win it initially and then you'll lose it immediately. And so I think, again, on our side, it's execute. Say, do what you say you're going to do. Listen to your customers and then put a roadmap together and execute on it. And if you can do that, I think you'll keep them.
And Philip, what about you? I mean, you have a product that some people could see as a point solution, or they could see as critical to their business. I mean, either way, where does the partnership come in with you guys?
Yeah, so I think we've got, two different sets of customers, exactly to your point. We've got some who, buy us, it's a turnkey solution, and they just deploy it and it works, and we think it's great in that case if our product just continues working well for them. And then we've got a set of customers where we're really diving deep with them and really solving problems together. And I think that's my kind of definition of being a true partner to a customer is really that idea of solving problems together collaboratively and building a solution that is truly what they seek, right? And we have this situation over and over where my engineering team will be on a call with a customer and we'll be brainstorming how to solve some particular gnarly problem that affects that customer, and what really is the best solution given their constraints. And what we like about this is as we've done this many times now with a number of smaller and bigger customers, what we've seen is a lot of these solutions that we work on with a customer that we brainstorm together, they end up translating really nicely to other customers down the line. So what may seem like custom work at the beginning actually ends up being beneficial to both us as a vendor and to the customer. And that's why I think of those scenarios as a true partnership, because it really benefits both sides, and it's great for us as a vendor because ultimately we have a better product for everyone, and it's great for the customer because it solves some big critical problem that they have at hand that they had previously, in many cases, no idea how to really tackle.
That's a really good point, Philip, is that the fact that, like your R&D lab is your customer base. It needs to be. And they are helping you, just as you say, two-way street. They are helping you create a better product for everybody else if they allow you to be partners with them. And then, both of you are benefiting at the time. I got to assume that's the same with you, Rick, yes?
Yeah, 100%. I would say our largest customers are our best partners and push us the hardest. And in fact, almost every single one of those features that comes out benefits every other organization that we do business with. So I think listen, partner, be there, show up, and be in the foxhole with your customers. And again, you'll continue to win that trust.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. And by the way, I just want to actually, before I jump on, I'm going to field a few of the questions that have come in for the listeners and viewers, for that matter. Please send us questions. I'm going to try to field some of them right now, and then we'll answer some more towards the end of the broadcast. We're almost halfway through right now. But let me ask this one, actually, because it has to do with what we were just talking about. This comes from Austin Cisneros. And Austin asks, do you see consulting firms in the security space more of a partner than individual vendors? So we're talking to individual vendors here. I'm going to ask both Alex and Tyson this. Are consultants more partnership because maybe they are potentially vendor agnostic, but I can't imagine they ever really truly are because they always have partnerships themselves. Do you see them differently, or are they the same as partners with other vendors? Alex?
Yeah, I definitely think that they can be, and I think there's sort of two subcategories there. One, you've got a lot of resellers that also have consultant groups, so I think of them as a little bit different. In that they definitely have their own partners, essentially, technologies that they resell, and no matter how agnostic they want to be, it's always going to be some conflict there. Mm-hmm. But then you have more independent consulting shops too, and I think that those can be really important, and some can rise to the level of being a partner, especially if you're maybe you do a lot of web app pen testing or something like that, and because of your application presence, if that's a really important thing for you, then yeah, I could see where that a vendor like that could be definitely a partner.
All right. And anything to add to that, Tyson?
Myself, I naturally gravitate towards building a single layer partnership. I think it's very difficult if you haven't already done work with a consultant, for them to really know. You have to get them up to speed, and you have to get the vendor up to speed, which I think is difficult. I give mad props to the consultants that can do this effectively, but I think it's very difficult in how we're kind of like special snowflakes, right, as businesses. So yeah, I naturally gravitate towards, Rick or Philip and I would build the relationship, and I would trust my resources over a consultant at the moment, usually, unless it's the efforts are overwhelming.
All right, let's move on to the next topic, and that is kind of like the core of why this whole series came about, and that is, does the traditional culture of sales not work with security products? And let me explain what I mean by this. Many aspects of sales, like focusing on the customer, those are universal. But I'm seeing common trends in sales, such as persistence, the follow-up, and marketing automation that are usually applauded and revered in the sales community, are often actually having the reverse effect when selling security products. Rick, let me begin with you. Are you seeing common tropes within selling just flat out not working in security sales? And like, if you do this because you know this from past, sales, you got to stop doing it. What's your advice?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and I talk to our team about this all the time. We're curmudgeons. We understand social engineering techniques, and so sometimes it lands on the human on the other end of that email or the phone call as those things, right? So we're very aware of marketing and how that all works, and I hear this almost at every conference. We don't like to be marketed to, right? Well, what does that mean? We still got to be aware of the products in the space. We still got to know those things. But it's a distinct challenge, right? Like walking that balance between the follow-up, meeting someone new that doesn't know what your service is, and then not landing as like in advanced sales threat, right? Like that's a tough one. And then so look, I say to our team all the time, I'm like, be patient. People are actually doing a job that's important. Sometimes emergencies come in. So I don't have the answer, but this is why I like this series, because this conversation, I think, will drive a better answer for us. But no, I don't think that they typically work on our community.
What about you, Philip? Are you finding that traditional sales techniques aren't working, and that, for your sales, that there's a little adjustment to be made, and what would that be?
Yeah, I think for us, it's what we found is it's really important for my sales team to really, and for the whole company, to understand and be able to emulate the customer. I think once you get past the barrier, the conversation changes very, very dramatically, right? So if you're just sending out blind emails and marketing campaigns, yeah, that gets annoying very, very quickly. But once both the sales and marketing team understands the kinds of situations that our customers are in, all of a sudden the content that we reach out with and the conversation that we have with them on the phone is very different. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is, you want to, as a vendor, at the end of the day, the customer is everything. The customer is in front, and they matter the most. And you want to have this, you want to appear maximally respectful of the customer and of their time and understanding of their problems. And I think if you get there, all of a sudden a lot of the techniques become much less annoying, and the conversation becomes meaningful. So that's what we ultimately try to do, is understand our customers and emulate the problems that they have, to really be able to shift the conversation to the solution and to how we can help.
All right, let me take this now to both Tyson and Alex. Can you guys describe ways that you do enjoy being, let's just say, marketed to, and how you enjoy? I mean, is there a way that you like receiving information, and can you point to a specific example? No, I'll start with you, Tyson.
So I think like Philip and Rick's point of empathy. I think understanding your audience is very important. So I think you have to find a road between being empathetic and understanding your audience, and that whole Alec Baldwin always be selling kind of thing. We're going to be a different audience, right? You have to know your audience. So I think, let's see what organizations. We've seen Newegg this week. We saw Ticketmaster in the last recent while. We saw the British Airways. If you can be somebody that can help me to sort through the noise, find out what is applicable to me without it just being something that's selling your product. It gives myself and my team more knowledge, and I can sort through the noise. I'm going to gravitate towards your product more and trusting you, right? So that is one thing for me that's very important, is if you take your expertise and you add it to my knowledge, and there's no expectation that I'm going to buy something, right? But that will stick in my mind, and I will start to build trust in your organization.
Alex, what can you point to ways that you like to be marketed to and you like to be sold to?
Yeah, I think building on what Tyson just said, try and build a relationship with the person. Don't try and sell to them. If I know someone, and going back to earlier conversations on trust, if I have some trust in that individual, then I am much more likely to listen to the message that they have. If I get blind emails, if I get people that are angry at me in emails because I haven't responded to their blind emails, those are things that are immediate turnoffs and marks against that company. I also will say, while from a privacy perspective, it's not nearly as fun to be tracked and marketed to online. Ricotta in specific, I have seen ads that have popped up on various sites that piqued my interest, and I said, oh, that looks interesting. And from getting the word out perspective, if you do have a way to target people that are in the demographic that you're looking for without making it obtrusive, then I think that is a win in my book.
All right, let's go to a few questions that we have. And by the way, thank you, John Hayden, who actually inspired very much this topic too. So thanks for your comment. He loves this topic. This comes from Adam Hawkins, and it says, as a sales professional, one thing that I think folks forget as a buyer is you're putting your reputation on the line by recommending a vendor. Now, this is actually a question for both vendors and the buyers. I'll just say, I'm going to ask everybody, do you feel when you make
Oh, I think we lost you, David.
Yeah, I think you froze.
David, we can't hear you.
This is Alex. I'm going to go ahead and guess at the end of David's question there, and I'm just going to start answering it even though he didn't finish. So from my perspective on recommending a vendor, I'm always going to be extremely honest. So if you gave me a lukewarm experience and you did not come off well, or I didn't have a good experience with you, I'm going to provide that as part of, maybe that's not a recommendation, as part of my advice to other people. Now, if you are a partner, and I think as Tyson was mentioning earlier, if you do become a partner of mine and I do trust you and you have lived up to your word and provided what I expect of you, I am more than happy to go out and recommend that to people. So I think that having the trust of someone in the community is extremely important, and people don't take those recommendations lightly. And from my perspective, I'm willing to give those if I believe in somebody.
Yeah, Alex, I'll
I'll
piggyback on that. I mean, look, I was a defender for 17, 18 years before I took this job. First vendor that I've worked for, first vendor that I go out and show for, right? To being 100% honest. But yeah, it's an interesting transition. Like when you go from trusted advisor suddenly you put a brand on that, and it gets a little weird sometimes, right? So I think to your point about reputation.
Hello, are we there? Are we back?
Yeah, we are, Dave. We're actually finishing your question. I think in regards to reputation, like I'm in the San Diego cybersecurity community, right? I'm sure in whatever market you're in, that's a small group of people who influence security decisions and all know each other. And so I think it is truly important to try to live up to your word, to try to deliver those things over time, and that's how you build the trust up, right? And I think that trust has enabled conversations that aren't normally enabled when a vendor walks in the door. At least my experience is I get to have way cooler conversations about people's technology stacks and where they're going and orchestration and all that cool stuff than it would without that. So Tyson?
Yeah, Rick, so I think if we are different, if traditional approaches don't work because of we represent cultures, right? We're not buying a used car, right? When we're doing this, that approach, I don't think, if that's the traditional approach, that doesn't work on us. But what vendors do get from us, and at least from me, in my opinion, is when we believe in something, we're fervent about it, right? And we will share it, and we are connected in multiple different ways, right? So we can be connected in the educational space, right? In universities that we advise for, or conferences we speak at. We're connected with other CISOs, right? And others that make decisions that don't have the title of CISO, right? So I think where we're not conventional, we make up for it in our zeal and our ability to influence others and to share. So I think it's worth helping us to accomplish what we need to accomplish and helping us serve our organizations, because in the long run, it will be a seed that's worth being planted. And the trust that I build and your approach cannot just be if it's a good salesperson, but it's not a good technology, right? Or the vision of the organization is not good, that breaks it. And if it's the good technology, but the salesperson is not good, that will break it as well, right? And that relationship I have. So I think that's very difficult. And that's something that, I want to have more empathy for. And I think we've seen that. That's why we're having these conversations. But it's like a match made in heaven kind of thing. It's going to be difficult, but it's worth the investment.
Tyson, I love what you said there. It's the entire chain for an organization, right? I mean, it's every touch point. It's not just sales or support. It's all the touch points represent the culture and the partnership. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know it's never one thing, and that's why it's very important to get a company to be on the same page. I mean, one of the issues that I hear all the time is that you ask a company what's the company mission, and you ask 20 employees, you'll get 20 different answers, and you can't kind of get everybody on the same page, and you're going to have a serious problem when you're selling, especially. And I will tell you also, one of the complaints that I have heard, and we've talked about this on the podcast as well, is every time like a new salesperson is assigned to a customer or to a potential customer, that for that matter, it's as if there's no information in the CRM system. And again, I'm not saying you guys specifically, but that they just find themselves repeating themselves over and over to different salespeople, and it's frustrating. It's like, you should have this in your CRM. So let me ask both Rick and Philip, do you guys have a system where when one salesperson goes or moves on to something else, that the information is transferred decently so they don't have, a potential customer or existing customer doesn't need to repeat themselves?
Absolutely. On our side, we've got kind of a process in place to transfer accounts between sales reps as we're growing the team. I think it's an awful situation where a customer has to repeat themselves or asks the same questions. Like, we want to make life as easy for customers as possible, and we go a step further. We also integrate between sales and our customer success team. So the two kind of sit close to each other, and we always try to navigate issues very collaboratively inside, which I think our customers see on their end. And oftentimes it's the case that even from the pre-sales cycle, we'll have someone answering technical questions involved on the on the call, if technical questions come up post-sale, it'll be that same person answering those questions, so that the customer already understands who they're talking to and that they can trust that person to really solve their issue.
Let me skip to a new topic, and this one may rankle some people when they hear it, but I want to go on to I'm skipping over to there. Does the fear sell actually work, even though CISOs hate it? And so repeatedly on this the CISO security vendor relationship series, I've reported that selling fear is not liked by CISOs at all. It's actually a major turnoff. But in my history of reporting, I know that whenever we announced a new security threat, traffic went up. And I have to imagine that resulted in also in the increase of sales of cybersecurity products. So I'm just going to assume that our CISOs hate fear. Can I get an amen? Yes?
Amen.
100%.
Yeah, you don't like them. But I'm going to ask the vendors, do you either through your own selling, and it could not be because you marketed, just because of like a latest breach came out and all of a sudden the phone starts ringing off the hook, but do you actually see fear working in a sales technique, even if you don't do it yourself or you've seen it in other organizations? Do you have evidence to show that fear does sell? I'll start with you, Rick.
Who are you selling to? Are you selling to the board and a CEO, or are you selling to the security professionals?
So that's a very good question. But go ahead. Give both.
Yeah, FUD definitely works at the board level. Compelling events work inside organizations. So you have a compelling event, everyone's very fearful. They suddenly give you a bunch of money to go put in a bunch of controls, right? I think when it comes to like CISOs and below, absolutely not. We're very realistic, and my message to everybody is like, even if you're running a program, even if you're selling security, if you constantly ring that alarm bell, you just become noise. So I think there is a time and place to do it, but you have to be. I think the challenge is being realistic in it, right? And I'll give you just a brief example. Met with some press over in the UK. We were actually talking about a new report that had come out, and they're like, "Well, you're just trying to sell boxes and FUD." And I was like, "Actually, we're trying to get help on this message, because while the message is totally true and these things are occurring, we don't want to add to that noise, right?" So I think, again, I'm a big fan of conversations, and that's a conversation we need to drive with vendors. It's like, how do we ring the alarm bell when it's appropriate to do that? Spectre and Meltdown seem to be a case where we need to move, but balancing that with all of the other attacks that occur and not just trying to sell a box. Yeah.
And Philip, have you seen cases where fear does sell, and similarly, I'm assuming that if fear sell works in one environment, it doesn't work in another environment? And I'm not saying that you do it, or maybe you do it. I don't know, but what have you seen with the FUD technique?
Yeah, generally speaking, what we've seen is, look, we're in the physical security space, and there's certainly, compelling events within organizations that drive decisions, and often those compelling events are, very scary things that happen in the physical world. We generally stay away from using fear tactics and techniques to drive our sales. We don't think that's an effective approach. I think instead of that, we try to focus on the issues at hand and the shifts that are happening in the industry, right? So rather than going after a fear tactic and saying that something bad might happen or whatnot, we try to attack it from the perspective of like, hey, what are the transitions in the industry that are happening, and are you understanding of them, right? Like, let's talk about privacy in the world of video surveillance, right? Like, that is a topic that is a current topic, and we think that's a much more fruitful avenue to actually driving the conversation than attacking it from like a uncertainty and doubt or fear angle, right? Like, so that's, fear has not been a core part of our approach in driving our transactions or sales.
We have just about 10 minutes left. Thank you very much, Philip, for that. Just 10 minutes left. I have a couple of questions here, but by the way, I can answer more questions. So if you can fire those questions in right now with our last 10 minutes, I want to answer them. I have John Hayden. He's with Trend Micro, and he's got a question that goes back to the discussion we were having about referrals from security buyers. And actually, I want to hear everybody's answer on this one. And he said, we heard from the several security buyers that the best way to establish a relationship is via referral. And my joke is people always ask me, like, what's the best email? Like, how do I craft the perfect email to pitch to a CISO? And my joke is the best email to sell your product doesn't come from you. It comes from somebody recommending you. So, however, and going back to John's question, however, if we vendors are tasking buyers with making referrals, intros, or references all the time, essentially to do our own sales, we're actually putting the burden on them. So how can we get referrals or intros without making it a headache for the security buyers? That's a really good question. So let me start with you, Alex. I'm assuming you like to preach products that you really, really like. Let me just first, do you feel that it's a burden to tell others about products that you really like?
I don't feel it's a burden. And those products that I do really like, I am always happy to provide a personal reference to somebody else. And those vendors that I have, elevated sort of to that partner status, or that, maybe close and they have a great product but aren't quite there yet. I tell my account people or the sales people or whoever it is that I have a relationship there, please use me as a reference because I really believe in your product. And I am always happy to do that. I'm big on community, and I want to help, the security community. So I think one of the ways to do that is to help get the good products to the people that need them.
Mm-hmm. And Tyson, do you feel that it's a burden to make references? And is there any way that you would, would like that burden lifted off of you, but you'd still support the product regardless?
Yeah. No, I don't see it as a burden at all. If I have the relationship and there's the trust and they're helping me, that is what I do already organically. I think natural places to ask, if I was going to, look on the sales side, natural places to ask would be, hey, there's this new feature that's come out. It's going to make your life better after you've used it. Would you mind, giving me your feedback and then sharing that feedback right with new customers or others? Another thing would be when I would come to Philip or Rick, and I would say, hey, I have these problems. Can you fix it? Once they fix the problem and they come back, that's a really good time to ask and say, hey, we fixed this for you. Not just because it's just for you, it's better for our product, but because you were a thought leader on this, would you mind sharing this with others, right? And we have this customer or that customer who'd like to make an introduction with. And that's another way. If you can build my community and my network, hey, this person is similar to you, or this person is stronger than you, and you could stand on the shoulders of giants, right? That's another value if you can bring it to that level. So it's a give and take, right? 80-20 rule. 80% should be beneficial for me, right? 20% should be beneficial for you. And when it keeps that ratio and it's even, I think that's where you're hitting the sweet spot in your sales approach, and you're hiring the right people that know instinctively how to do that.
So let me take this back to Rick and Philip. Do you guys, and that's a really good point about timing the ask, if you will, and also making the link as clear as possible. What have you found has been most successful for getting those referrals that you need? Rick, is it a timing issue? Do you actually provide some assets? Like, could you share this specific asset with so-and-so? Like, what works for you, Rick?
Honestly, I've been surprised since I've been here. The technology, like we have fanatical customers because we've actually solved some problems, right? And I know that sounds easy when you're on the vendor side, but trust me, I'm a skeptic as well. But yeah, so I think building the partnership, and then all we try to do is connect the community together, right? So whether that's our own event or as we're out on the road, trying to make sure that the people who are up to the same things are like talking to each other and moving. We're really big on the community aspect, and so I think all of that, like that culture, and then contributing back to the community helps us have big fans. So I've been super surprised about our the industry evangelicals about Carbon Black. Yeah,
that's good. And Philip, let me ask you: is there anything that you've noticed that works best for harnessing those referrals that you need, and any ways that sort of you, I guess, grease the sort of that referral chain, if you will?
Well, I think Alex said it best at the very beginning, which is the subset of customers who are super excited about your products, they almost go out of their way to be our best advocates, and we have no shortage of those. So that's the primary tactic that we rely on when it comes to referrals, is those extremely excited, almost obsessive customers who really believe in the technology and transition. But kind of tactically, we also do kind of a lot of things with our close customers. We bring them together for get-togethers to brainstorm on product features, to think about what the future of of our product, but also more broadly of the industry, what the future can be. And those types of events and those type of gatherings are really good occasions for getting some of that referral momentum going, and getting some of that word to spread, if you will.
All right. Well, we only have a few minutes left. I want to give you guys a little opportunity to sort of give a pitch out to the community of how to connect with you guys if they're interested in connecting with you, all four of you. We only have 5 minutes left. I want to just thank you. This has been an awesome conversation, and as I assumed, I have this huge rundown of questions. I don't even think I hit half of them. So there's lots more material to do down the line. So I really appreciate all four of you being here. Let me just go through all four, and if there's any way, just a final pitch or last comment, how you want people to connect with you. Let me start with Tyson. And I want to quote something you said. I said, go to you, Tyson. Some partners are more important than your employees. So you'd be willing to lose an employee over a certain partner, which I thought was great. Tyson, anything you want to say in closing here, how people can connect with you?
So first, I don't want to lose my employees. So I love my employees. I know that my partners make my employees' lives better. So that's very important. So
right.
I'm probably gonna
get the fact that you want to lose employees.
No, so number one, I think so back to people are important, right? And relationships are very important. And so I'm going to take kind of the non-technical side. I think having your employees having balance in their life, and having your partners having balance in their life. I think we as customers need to be good customers, as well as vendors need to be good vendors. So for me, I get the opportunity to travel and to evangelize making security better. And that's I'm thankful to my organization, which is a company called Orvis. It's an outdoor fly fishing, hunting lifestyle brand, right? So if you ever want to get out, get disconnected a little bit, check the Orvis company out. I guess that's, I don't have any, I'm not looking to fill any positions on my security side. But if you want to, if you ever wanted to be a part of a team that's, based in Vermont, it's kind of cool to have be a cybersecurity professional in a state where there's way more probably deer than there are people, right? That kind of thing. So, that's us at Orvis. And David, thanks for the time, and it's good to meet everybody else. So. All
right, and Philip, quickly tell everybody what Verkada is if they don't already know, and how to connect with you.
Sure. So at Verkada, we're building the world's best video security solution, and more broadly, we're trying to tackle the problem of safety in physical spaces, and we're doing a lot of this through software, right? So we're trying to also be conscious of data privacy and information security as we're solving these problems. I think, as I think of the industry and as I think of what we're doing, the most fun aspect of this for me, and I think for our partners and customers and everyone, is solving real world problems. And I think that's ultimately what we want to do. We treat a lot of the relations with our customers, but also with our reseller partners, as working together to tackle situations and bring new use cases. And that is the exciting and challenging part. We're always very open to connecting with people who want to help us in that mission of just improving the world's safety.
You are, correct me if I'm wrong, you are, what's the best way to connect with people?
I'm Philip at verkada.com, Philip at verkada.com.
And Tyson, people should connect with you on LinkedIn, yes?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. It's in/Tyson Martin.
Okay, Tyson Martin. Okay, quickly, Rick, how should people connect with you? And Carbon Black endpoint security, what should people know?
Yeah, look, we're on a mission to make the world safe from cyber attacks. So we're a big fan of the community. We're a big fan of conversations. Get involved on the vendor side, get involved on the defender side, and let's make this problem better. You can find me at InfoSecRick. I'm all over LinkedIn. So if you can't find me on LinkedIn, it's probably your fault, not mine. And David, I'll be commenting on the broadcast when it comes out. So if you have questions, just post them on there.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then lastly, but definitely not least, Alex Wood of Pulte Financial Services. How should people connect with you? And by the way, my apologies to everybody that I didn't get questions answered, but these are all good information that I will use for future content. Alex Wood, how should people get in contact with you, and anything you want to tell people about Pulte?
Thanks, David. I can be found on LinkedIn as well. That's probably the best way. Pulte Financial Services, we are part of the Pulte Group organization. So if you're looking to buy a new house, check that out. Also, on a more personal note, I mentioned in some of my questions, I'm a big fan of the security community and help building that community. So I've helped start a group here in Colorado called Colorado Equals Security, talking about how great the ecosystem is here in Colorado. And we also have a podcast. You can check it out, colorado-security.com.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you are not currently a listener of the CISO Security Vendor Relationship Podcast, please start subscribing to it. You can find that and the new site, which will be launching in less than 2 weeks, at CISOseries.com. But you can go there now because that'll take you to all the content that's currently up on Security Boulevard. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, for listening. And that's it. I appreciate you being part of this conversation. Goodbye.